So Walmart, the necessary evil in my life,
For
as
real.
present by the not Walmart model.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I always get pushed back people like I hate Walmart. Like, but why? It's so cheap. I'm like,
There's a reason why
yeah,
it's
I
cheap.
was like, yeah, because they don't pay their employees money. They accept EBT, so they get a tax credit for accepting that, and then they make their employees go on it. I think it's like 65% of Walmart employees are on government assistance.
Damn.
So essentially, they're sending the bill to the U.S. government saying, hey,
Yeah.
pay our employees more money.
And see, that's actually what I've heard too. Is a lot of these like articles that talk about Walmart talk about the reason why they're able to afford these cheap prices is because they have like all their employees are like part time, so they don't deal with the bullshit of like having to have insurance for your employees, which then brings the price down. But then as a consumer, you're fucking like dope. Like I can get something for like $3 compared to 5 or 10 somewhere else. But then it comes at a cost that you're not necessarily seeing, but it comes out of your taxes through.
Well, exactly. It's a cost to the government, but on top of the fact that you compare them to Publix. Publix has the wider lanes. They train their employees better. They have a cleaner facility.
Wider lanes.
Yeah, they take care of their equipment, so the carts run better. On top of the fact that they actually maintain and keep the food safe. Like I've had stuff where I regrettably bought milk from Walmart one time and it didn't expire for 2 weeks and it was already sour 2 days later.
I've had that happen to me too, and not necessarily from Walmart, but just in general. And I guess it kind of bleeds into the whole kind of topic of are expiration dates even a real thing?
Well,
like it has 2 weeks left on your milk and now it's curdled and you got cheese.
And I will say that there's a lot. The reason why there's not a lot of, because I worked in restaurants, so I've seen where it's like, oh, this is fresh. I'm like, that's got mold on it.
Yeah,
you're full of shit. The reason there's not a lot of like laws on it, because the food industry wants to keep it off that, so that way there's less legal repercussions from so many consumers. From the restaurant end, the restaurants can start suing people, the consumers can start suing the restaurants, who then in turn turn it on them. So that's their protection.
So they're incentivized.
So that way they're kind of like, oh, hey, we told you it's best by 2 days from now. So the thing is, a lot of expiration dates are undercut by a significant margin because they feel like if they put a warning and say, hey, this expires in May and doesn't expire until November, their ass is covered. Because if you're dumb enough to not listen to that warning 6 months later, and when it finally does go bad, they're like, whatever. Plus, if it goes like bad quicker, now it incentivizes you to keep getting more. So
that's true, and I think that's like the capitalistic incentive.
That's to them. They're like, oh, if we tell them, it's like an iPhone. They're like, oh, well, we'll make sure your iPhone's a bricked piece of shit in 2 years.
We'll
so
slow it down.
You're for sure buying the new one.
Yeah,
and we'll slow down the battery. We'll put a weaker battery in there.
And that kind of goes with like to like you were saying with milk, like. They tell you, oh, it expires on the 5th of November. But in reality, you could probably drink it until like the 15th of November.
And that's, but the one thing is, especially.
But you don't.
Well, you don't, exactly. I don't, because I'm like,
I'm so worried.
Because I'm like, my luck. My luck is I'm that guy who's going to get the sour milk and it's going to kill me.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to be just pinned to the toilet for the next 2 days.
But that's the economic incentive then, because now they're printing on this label and the milk could be completely fine. You could drink it for another week and it's fine. Mm-hmm. But because they put a date on it that's arbitrary, apparently, you're sitting here going, I don't know if I should drink this. And you toss the whole gallon and go buy a new one.
Yep. And so exactly, and the thing is, it's all in a part of plan, because then they also have a system where you'll see the increments of how things are going jump up so big. So you'll go from like a quarter gallon to a full gallon, and I'm like, can I get I don't need all
like
of
a
that.
Third gallon?
I was like, yeah, can I get a third? Nope, you got to do a half or a quarter, or a pint, half or full. That's it.
Yeah.
Because they know that at some point, the pint's too small. If you're gonna have cereal more than once,
you're
gonna need more.
Yeah.
The half gallon might generally for some people is just about right.
Yeah.
But sometimes you use more than that, and now you have to double your intake. And they do that on purpose because now they know that you're just gonna throw it out, or you're gonna have to go buy more, and you're over purchasing.
And they're incentivized to get rid of it, because if it goes bad on their hands, then they just lost money.
Exactly. So they don't want to dump it off on you.
Shit.
They still increase profit margins. Exactly. It's all a big mess. With milk and stuff like that in particular, though, the reason why that numbers can be so arbitrary is because it also depends on how you store it.
Yeah.
It's like saying, oh, well, this car generally lasts up to 100,000 miles, but if I go do Mad Max racing in the desert with it, it's not making it to 100,000 miles.
That's a good point.
So same thing with milk. If Walmart is why I particularly don't trust any produce in them, is because they'll just sit on a pallet outside in room temperature for 6 hours, hit the danger zone, go bad, form bacteria, and then they put it in the fridge. And they're like, hey, it's good till the 18th. I'm like, no, guy, it's the 3rd and it's fucking chunky.
Yeah.
Like, that's what happens.
And there's nothing worse than that shit. Like, I've
dude.
gone to make coffee and just, I'm like, oh God, what happened?
At my house, we're really bad at throwing out food that's been there for too long, because all of us get too lazy. We're like, man.
Yeah.
Someone else.
Eventually get it.
And so just the other day, I go to dump out the milk, and it literally didn't come out of the jug. It was so hard, and it literally like cottage cheese sliding out. I nearly threw up. I was like, oh my God, that garbage disposal is forever unclean. I can't.
But the expiration date wasn't hit.
No, that one was past expiration date. No, that thing,
2 weeks still left on it. I'll drink it. Fuck it. It's good to go.
But yeah, so that's an arbitrary number. So that, in addition to all the other shit that falls into the bigger problem with Walmart, which is that their employees are not properly trained, they're not properly compensated, so they're not paid enough to give a shit.
Exactly.
In companies, Walmart is kind of the perfect example of the exception for that. Normally, the rule of thumb is if you pay your employees well, they care more, so your profits go up.
Yeah.
Companies seem to have got away from that concept. They're more focused on, no, we want to nickel and dime everybody. Now that the job market's so bad, retention of employees is the least valuable asset they have.
Yeah.
They would rather just keep turning over shitty workers.
Yeah, the supply of workers is really high.
Because training them is so cheap because they don't properly train them, and people need jobs constantly.
Yeah.
So, you'll even have instances where people were, hated their job, quit, and then because there's nothing else, come back.
Yeah.
And so, to them, retention of employees is the least valuable asset nowadays.
Yeah, and that kind of goes with the whole wider economic situation right now where, the power is no longer in the workers' hands, and it's because there are so few jobs. Mm-hmm. And the employers know that, so they can offer you $10 for a job that's normally going to pay $15, and what are you going to do?
Exactly.
And you're going to take 10 over 0, so you take a $10 an hour job, and you hate yourself, and you hate your job, so you don't perform well, and that diminishes the business as a whole.
Exactly. And that's the issue, is that you can't build a foundation on something weak. You need to build a strong foundation of good base level paid employees.
Yeah.
I'm a constitutionalist. I don't necessarily believe in full socialistic concepts, but to me, a minimum wage is bad. But honestly, the idea that I'd rather have a maximum wage and no minimum wage than a minimum wage and no maximum.
See, I'd have actually quite the opposite, interestingly enough, because I feel like to some degree, it's no one else's responsibility or right to tell you how much money you can make. If this podcast blew up and I was Joe Rogan level, $110 million a year kind of shit, I don't want somebody coming in and say, we're going to cap you at $2 million. That's all you need. Because that's damn, dude, I worked hard for that.
And that's a fair point. But to me, and that's the thing. This is where I'm saying it's a hard concept, just because it all falls onto the fact that everyone hates greed. Everyone hates greed until it's their greed that's in play.
Yep.
But you can't trust anybody to do anything right. That's why communism does not work, is because greed is always the downfall of it. Communism is a utopian society. The over government that is completely unbiased and for the betterment of all people takes care of everything for you, so you don't have to work or do anything. You just get everything for you. That sounds great, and it's a perfect world until someone has to run that, and then all of a sudden now they want more for themselves.
Yeah, and I was actually talking to this guy when I was in Austria last, and he does a lot of technological shit. He loves reading about it. He theorizes about the future and how technology and society are going to intertwine. And he proposed to me that within the next couple hundred years that human-run governments will be essentially useless because of the fallacies inherent in human judgment.
Absolutely.
So it's way easier just to turn it over to a program that will analyze the pros and cons and then make the best analysis and then tell you this is what you need to do. And what he was saying was that's essentially going to be the government. And at that point, communism could work. I'm not endorsing the idea. I'm not endorsing the idea.
That sounds like a great idea. To me, I think
it's a bit crazy.
Great where, it's almost like if Skynet didn't go rogue and kill people.
Yeah.
You're like, this is great. I don't have to do anything. And this is another conversation we can segue into about why I think loss of jobs to technology is a good thing, not a bad thing. There's short-term ramifications for it. But the thing is, for me, the issue is, and I know exactly what's going to happen, is it's the culture of I'm more important than everybody else. Greed still takes over.
Yep.
So, and a good example would be, I'm of the unpopular. Now, I'm not saying eugenics like Hitler, but I'm of the unpopular opinion where if you know that you carry a very bad trait in your genes, it kind of should be your job as a human in the greater scheme of things to not
procreate.
breed.
Yeah.
So, for example, with my stepbrother, he was both of his parents, my former stepdad and my stepmom were. They both suffer from chronic depression. Mm-hmm. My stepdad has bipolar, OCD. He has tons of problems. He has extreme anger issues, physical issues, and all of it went to my stepbrother. He has many issues. I mean, he suffers from chronic migraines that'll last days. He suffers from depression, Asperger's. He's on the spectrum of autism.
Yeah.
Like, he has so many issues. And he even says, he's like, my parents should not have had me. He's like, I have issues he's like, and I'm never gonna have a kid. He's like, I have made that decision. I will. If I ever meet someone, we're adopting somebody. He's like, there's enough kids in the world that need to be adopted because, like, there is no reason for me to continue to contaminate the gene pool with what my issues are.
But then doesn't that it's kind of a sad proposition.
Well, it is, and this is where people, the very dark outlook of the need of the many outweigh the few. Mm-hmm. And I know that this is where it gets unpopular because people,
especially in America,
because people in their head think, but no, that's not fair to me. And I'm like, okay, but you have to understand sometimes you have to do things that aren't fair for the greater overall.
Yeah.
So obviously, someone isn't going to want to in their head think, well, why would I not have a kid and have the bond that I get from that just because we're slightly overpopulated and because their kid might end up having some form of, Asperger's or
yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, but at the same time, you're literally saying that I think that my current scenario is more important than the greater good. Now, I understand because human condition is their preferences themselves. No one ever does anything that's not completely selfless. Like there is selfishness in every act.
Yeah,
taken. Giving charity.
True altruism doesn't exist.
Exactly. People give the charity because the feeling it gives them.
Exactly.
You will never do something that there's not something in it for you.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can receive more out of the little things you get, and that's inherently more selfless. But no one's ever going to be like, I'm not going to have a kid and I'm not going to do this because in 2,000 years the world will be better for it.
Yeah.
Especially when it's the idea of a single drop in a bucket. You realize everyone would have to follow suit for it to actually make the difference.
Exactly.
But a saying I like is the raindrop never blames itself for the flood. Just because.
I like that.
Yes.
Say it for the people.
The raindrop never blames itself for the flood.
That is.
And I want that tattooed on me somewhere.
Hell yeah.
But because I've always seen that opportunity where people were like, oh, but it's what difference is it going to make? What difference does it make? And I see it repeatedly. That is the problem in today's world. Is no one wants to be the first one to do it. They want to be the last one. They kind of jump on and say, I did my part.
Yeah.
After it no longer matters.
It's kind of like the piss in the pool idea. Well, it's like, I'll pee in the pool. It's okay. It's only me. But then everyone's doing that. Yep. And now you swim in fucking piss. It's like, what?
Well, a perfect example I'll use is, and I called it the year before, and people got so mad when I made this comment, was about Bernie Sanders. I said, I bet you Bernie doesn't win a damn thing. People were like, what do you mean? Look at the traction he's getting. I'm like, because all of you are going to share your damn memes, you're going to feel the burn, and then none of you are going to
no one's going to turn out.
And then sure enough, 49% of registered Democrats came out to vote. I'm like, that's on you.
Yeah.
I was like, blame the DNC all you want. The DNC played their part, but Florida, that's you.
Yeah.
You did, all of you millennials who wanted to be like, yeah, we're feeling the burn.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't show.
And then you don't fucking vote.
Because you felt everyone else was like, oh, it's just my vote. One doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, well there you go. It mattered. I mean, you had an election, and I forget what position. Phil DeFranco covered this. Just in, it was like Alabama, where essentially one of the precincts won by 40 votes.
I heard about that. Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's it.
An example.
That's you making the difference.
Yeah.
People just don't like to think about that.
No, yeah, that's true.
And so getting back to the idea that no one's going to be willing to be like, oh, I'm not going to have my kids, and I think the same thing's going to happen as soon as you have robot government. The government's be like, you don't deserve this money because it doesn't make sense logistically. And people will be like, but I feel a certain way, so I demand it to be different. And people will be like, because it's going to be not a human on the other side of that.
Yeah.
Their immoral, their lack of morality or sympathy to it is going to be completely gone. I mean, we already have such a hard issue where we look at technology and everything is completely. It's ours to control, so people feel entitlement to how they can treat it.
Yeah.
So look at.
But when you flip it.
So if you have a government, where the government's saying that you can't do this and you can't do that, there's going to be there'll be people who want to destroy it. There'll be people who sabotage it, who try and steal from it, cheat it.
Yeah.
No one's going to ever follow that system, and so to me, it's inherently going to be the same problem.
Yeah, it's kind of like if your cell phone started telling you what you had to do.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Like,
get up, go take a piss.
Or even I go text my friend, like, no, you're at work, don't text them. Well, like, who the fuck are you to tell me that? I'll throw my phone against the wall.
No, it's
and so it's the same. People.
If I want to have a kid, and the government tells me, the government robot tells me, nope.
If the machine, and people already have enough issue with China, the actual man-made robot saying one kid only. Can you imagine when the robot says, completely emotionless, oh, well, we're overpopulated by 400,000.
So no one can have babies.
Exactly.
And it's like, fuck.
And that's what I'm saying, because logistically, humans in general have we function completely ineffectively. There's nothing we do that is true effectiveness.
Yeah, and I think if we had the robot government and implemented communistic style thoughts into society, that you would almost be creating, because humanity itself is very interesting because it's different from a lot of different groups in the animal kingdom. But when you start to lead yourself to like a robot telling society what to do, and you have all these communist equality between every single person, you almost become like an ant colony. Which is not to say it's not effective. And when you look at a society like an ant colony, it's like each one is that individual raindrop.
Yep.
But then when you have them all together, they create this flood, and it's just like these masterpieces.
There's a fine line between what is effective and what is purposeful, in the sense that, why would I want to be effective if there's no joy that comes out of it? At what point we now just stop, or are we so focused on the betterment of the human race and the betterment of overall that now the individual completely doesn't matter?
Yeah.
And why are we there's no free will, there's none of that. And so there's that line that we dance. And realistically, because that line is so ambiguous, we'll never get any progress closer to it, I feel like, because we're at a point where we're like, okay, well, we're happy with where we're at. We hate where we're at, but we're happy where we're at that. Because what happens when now you, use 1984, or I don't know if you've ever seen Black Mirror?
No, but I read 1984.
Okay, so...
Plug in Black Mirror.
Netflix, Black Mirror, episode 2, called 15 Million Credits. The main actor is the guy from Get Out. The black actor. The whole thing is you never see the people who rule the society, but what they do is in this little room where everything's a screen, they have to pay to get rid of advertisements, otherwise watch ads, and they're sitting there and they get up every day, they go on their bike where they ride their bike, and then they can either play a game or watch TV, but all they do is just ride this bike to accumulate credits to either purchase food, getting rid of ads.
I see. And then that bicycle is kind of creating like energy contribution.
Exactly. It's just it powers to the system, and that's kind of what this would essentially be. They give you indicators that there are higher up humans who live much more lavishly, but in your head you kind of get the idea that obviously there's some kind of overlord here that just hits the ceiling. Like there's a hard ceiling because it's no longer effective. There's no good point to it. And so, without spoiling it, because it is an episode that I absolutely suggest everyone watch, kind of going in blind beyond anything I'm saying. That kind of gives an idea of how it would be here, and just that people now at this point you've lost your humanity. There's so little of it left. For what? The sake of the humans being the most effective species on Earth?
Exactly.
It's like, okay, why? What is the ultimate end goal? Because if you're under the assumption that there is no purpose to life, or if you're under the religious assumption that you're here to serve a certain deity, narrative doesn't fit into either of those.
Exactly, and it doesn't really contribute to the individualistic needs of each person. If you're just working for the whole system, then you kind of have to cast aside your individual desires to contribute to that larger cause.
Exactly, and God, Allah, any form of the belief of the Confucius, none of that says go out and be 100% effective for the betterment of humans. It says no, be compassionate, have these things, but compassion literally means making making a sacrifice. Yeah, it's about doing the hardest thing to do in the hardest situation for someone. Okay. So to me, in my life, donating money to a homeless person, that doesn't effectively help me at all, because I need that. I can be getting that money to pay for something, paying off debt. So to me, that's compassion, is when I'm sacrificing something. A sacrifice is inherently against effectiveness. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So I'm saying there's that line where if I'm trying to be the most effective human, okay, well now my free will's gone because I'm doing everything against. I don't want to do it. I have to do it. Type of mentality. So that doesn't fit into any religious narrative. And then if you're completely atheist and you believe that you're here to make your own purpose, being effective is not a good purpose because you're not going to see any of the dividends.
And I guess with the communism stuff, it's like on paper it seems like this would be the most effective system because everyone's contributing to the larger, greater good, and everyone has a part to play. But if you're not actively allowing people to pursue their passions and things they're genuinely interested in, you're just like handing jobs out. Okay, you're gonna be a coal miner. Okay, you're gonna do AC work. But both those people don't want to do those jobs. Maybe this guy wants to be an artist and this guy wants to be a carpenter. You're ultimately going to have a less effective society in the pursuit of being more effective because you're giving everybody a job to be part of the system, but now each person's not doing the thing they're best suited for.
Well, and that's true for a system like now where you have people who have learned this system, but it's kind of like the old theory conundrum of the people in the cave where people were born in the cave, shadow of the wall, all they ever see are the shadow puppets.
So they don't know the real world and they go back.
And then they freak out.
Yeah.
So the thing is, if you were to eventually phase out the concept of anyone ever knowing their freedoms, you would eventually be rid of people who yearn for more because like ants. If ants somehow had, self-awareness and then were introduced to something more enjoyable than carrying other dead insects to a colony, there would be eventually a revolt.
Yeah.
So the same thing here is if
down with the queen.
You do it in reverse. You get rid of all the people who know their free will, essentially effectively strip it from human, thought process to where it is nothing more than just a dream. Now you don't have your uprising. Now you still have people who just all they know is to be 100% effective.
Which is
it's a scary process. It's
a
terrifying process.
It almost like parallels 1984 with
exactly.
1984 they had to some degree self-awareness and they were like, hey, this is kind of fucked.
Well, because even like the guy, I forget the main character. What's the main character's name?
I haven't read since high school.
That's the same.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
He was alive prior to all of it beginning. Like it was new. I remember he alludes to it several times prior that previous to this time there was a different thing and everything was different. So he's kind of the example of some of the people who still yearn for that freedom because he knew it once before
and he wasn't fully
learned of it.
Encompassed in the system.
Where if you look at 1984 and say they made a follow-up that's 2084, no one will be alive to have understood anything different. So it literally would be everyone's just robots.
Is this a book you're writing?
As a matter of fact, so I'm gonna do a
we're plugging that real fast.
No, but so to me that's where I understand why none of that's good. To me, like people are like, oh well, robot overlord's like, no, don't worry, humans won't allow that to happen.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it would require us to have that hive mentality like an ant colony or what. You'd have to phase out all this individualism and this individual passions and just make them robots essentially. Like
and you have to dehumanize humans to make it work.
Yeah,
because humans, our ability is to be inherently flawed.
So then I guess maybe when we come back after this, we can talk about how that might be de-evolution because in the pursuit of being more progressive and getting a more, total society through communism or something like that, or the ant colony, you also somehow lose what makes you human and you almost revert back to it, essentially animals, because, you have all these different things in the kingdom, and then we have us who kind of are different, but then we devolve back down to be more cohesive like the ant colony.
Exactly.
It's kind of weird.
Right.
We'll be right back.